Well, what a week. It's a nice cooler day compared to the rest of the week where we've had some really hot weather, which is unusual for September. But here I am down on the allotment. One of the problems that I'm seeing right now is my tomatoes have become infected with blight. This happened with my outdoor home tomatoes, but now it's happening down here on the allotment as well. Now, I would say that blight is pretty common here in the UK. It's a fungal disease that really can devastate our tomato and potato crops. And when I see it like this, I think it's just a case now of saying goodbye. It's a shame because I do really like our tomatoes. Our greenhouse tomatoes are still doing okay, both here and at home. And actually we had a good crop of tomatoes this year, but what I didn't do is grow any blight resistant tomatoes. I wanted to use up all of my tomato seeds that I seem to collect in my seed collection. Had I grown some of our blight resistant varieties of tomatoes, we would probably still continue to be able to get tomatoes. Instead, they are dying, so it is time for them to go. Now, all I do when it's a case of getting rid of these is I just cut the plants off at the base to try and remove from the ground, remove the foliage, that is. So it is disappointing. It is really disappointing because look at this. Look at this. This would be a nice tomato, but it's got blight. Really, really annoying. Right, well that's got all the tomatoes lifted or removed now, which has given me all this blighted foliage, which I'm going to compost in just a moment. Now, this brings me up to a question I want to ask you guys is, what do you do with your blighted tomatoes? I compost it. We're not allowed bonfires here on the allotment, and at home I just feel it would be a bit too smoky to try and burn it, so I'm going to compost it. And I've done a lot of research, and from the research I've concluded is that blight spores don't survive on dead material. So for that very reason I'm going to compost it, but I'd like to know what you guys do with your own foliage. Now the next thing is what we're going to do with this next bed, and I've got an idea. So the plant that's still inside this bed is this pumpkin plant, which I'm pretty happy with. We've got a pumpkin growing here, not the biggest, but I think that's about a good size. But the plant itself is actually growing outside of the bed. So I'm just going to try and, there we go, bring that so I can keep it within the confines of this bed. Just makes it a little bit easier for when it comes to sowing or mowing the grass paths. Now, this bed itself, once this pumpkin is gone, isn't going to be used until next spring when potatoes go in this. So I really need to start thinking about preparing this bed for the potatoes at the same time. And what I'm going to be doing is sowing Phacelia seeds. Now Phacelia is a green manure. It's one I use quite a bit actually. It's certainly one of my favourite green manures because it does grow pretty quick, grows pretty big, and shelters out a lot of the couch grass that we suffer with. This bed was particularly difficult with couch grass this year, so I'm just going to sprinkle some of this around, and then we'll give it a good watering in, and we'll see how it gets on. So yeah, so there's nothing difficult about sowing the seeds. I just scatter them around quite liberally. Well worth growing, I think. Green manure is one of my favourite things for improving our soils and our beds. But that is it for this video. Let me know in the comments down below what you do with blighted material on your own allotment or your garden, if you've suffered from blight this year or in previous year, that is. I think it's very common these days, so I suspect everyone has suffered. Right, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.